Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a topic you probably think you know, Bushido. But what if I told you we're going to look at it from a completely different angle? Not as a code for warriors, but as a spiritual guide for the soul.
When you hear the word Bushido, I'm guessing your mind jumps straight to samurai warriors, right? Katanas, a strict code of honor, all of that. And yeah, that's definitely the popular image. But the teachings we're exploring today say the real battle isn't out there on some field, it's in here. We're going way deeper to uncover a spiritual meaning that's all about the battle within ourselves.
So, our guide on this journey comes from these incredible spiritual teachings attributed to a divine spirit named Amenomioyagami. They frame Bushido as this really profound philosophy for life. So, think of this less as a history lesson and more of a spiritual deep dive.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to totally redefine what true Bushido even is. Then, we'll get into the core idea of the soul, who you really are. After that, we'll unpack this fascinating paradox between being selfless and having huge ambitions. We'll discover the true purpose of fighting, and finally, we'll bring it all home and see how these ancient ideas can actually apply to our lives today. Okay, let's jump right in. Part 1. What is true Bushido? Well, the answer might not be what you expect. It's all about one thing, the battle against worldly attachment.
At its absolute heart, this kind of Bushido is like a rescue mission for your soul. The central idea is that while we're living on Earth, we get tangled up in all these desires, right? The hunger for money, for approval, just this attachment to our physical bodies. This path is designed to cut those cords, to stop our souls from getting trapped here, so that one day we can return to our true home in the celestial or spiritual realm. So you see, the real enemy isn't some other army. It's the illusions we get caught up in inside our own minds. So, if the main goal is to free the soul, we've got to first understand what the soul is. And that brings us to part 2, the soul, your true self. This, right here, is the absolute bedrock of the entire philosophy. Before you can even take one step on the path, you have to realize who, or more like what, you truly are. So here's the number one thing to get, the most important realization of all. You are not your body. Your true essential self is the invisible soul that's just living inside your physical form for a little while. Think of your body as a temporary vessel, but your soul is eternal. I mean, check this out. This visual just lays it out so perfectly. On the one hand, you've got the physical body. It's temporary, it's where all our worldly cravings and frustrations come from, and it basically anchors us to earth. But on the other hand, you have the soul. That's the real you. It's eternal, and it belongs to a whole other realm. Really, truly getting this difference? Well, it changes everything. And once you start thinking that way, it leads to the kind of incredible courage you see in this quote. When you truly identify with your eternal soul, the fear of physical death just loses its grip on you. Now, this isn't about wanting to die, not at all. It's about being unafraid to sacrifice the temporary vessel for something that lasts forever, like a greater purpose or a fundamental truth. This brings us to a really cool and fascinating paradox that's right at the heart of this warrior mindset. How can you possibly be completely selfless, but at the same time have this massive drive to achieve great things in the world? Let's unpack that. The secret is you have to hold two ideas in your head that seem to totally contradict each other. On a personal level, for yourself, you have to be selfless. But for the world, you need to have a huge, great ambition. So let's break down these two key concepts, muga, which is selflessness, and taioku, or great ambition. First up, we've got muga, which you could translate as no self. But really, think of it as being free from the tyranny of your own ego. It's about letting go of that little voice in your head that's always asking, so what's in it for me? It means releasing that greed for more stuff, that craving for other people's approval, and even that deep, primal fear of just preserving yourself. It's about detaching from that small, anxious I that's so tied to the physical body. But, and this is the paradox, that selflessness doesn't mean you just sit back and do nothing. No way! It's actually paired with taioku, or great ambition. Now, don't get this twisted. This is not personal greed. This is a powerful, impersonal drive to make a huge impact, to achieve incredible things for a cause that's way bigger than you are. It's about fulfilling your life's purpose for the good of the world. So if you've got this mindset of selfless ambition, what does it actually mean to fight? Well, the most famous symbol of the warrior is the sword. But in this philosophy, its purpose is almost entirely spiritual. Let's get into it.
A warrior on this spiritual path never ever fights for personal reasons. Not for money, not for fame, not for revenge. The only reason to fight is for what these teachings call God's justice, or true justice. It's about fighting to fix what's wrong, to defend what's right, and to help restore a kind of divine order to the world. And this is such a critical point. It completely reframes the whole idea of the sword. In this philosophy, the sword is not a tool for killing people. Its real purpose is something much, much higher. Here we go. This shows its higher purpose perfectly. The sword is a sacred instrument used to cut things on a spiritual level. It's used to sever your own worldly desires, your attachments, your obsessions, all the illusions, which are sometimes called demons or ma, that cloud your mind and trap your soul. It's a weapon of liberation.
And that brings us to this really profound quote. You are alive, but you are also dead. So what on earth does that mean? Well, it means the sword helps you die to your false self, to your ego, to your attachments, to all the illusions. And by dying to that world of illusion, you become truly alive in the spiritual sense, fully connected to your eternal soul.
Okay, I know these are some pretty big, high-minded ideas, but how do you actually live like this? How do you practice this spiritual way of being in your day-to-day life? Well, part 5 breaks it all down into 2 core principles you can use every single day. The 2 practices that really ground this whole philosophy are banji tete, which basically means being incredibly thorough in ordinary, everyday things, and ichigo ichie, which is about treating every single moment like a unique, once-in-a-lifetime encounter. So let's start with banji tete. This principle teaches that spiritual strength isn't found in some big, dramatic gesture. It's forged in the small stuff. It's about the relentless, dedicated perfection of totally mundane tasks. How you make your coffee, how you answer an email, how you clean your house. Doing these simple, ordinary things with absolute focus and dedication, that is what builds the soul of a warrior.
And then you combine that daily discipline with the mindset of Ichigo Ichi. This is the deep, profound understanding that every moment, every interaction is a once-in-a-lifetime event. It will never happen again. You live each day as if it's the final, decisive battle. Because, hey, it just might be your last. It forces you to ask that incredibly powerful question every single day. If my life ended right now, would I be satisfied with how I live today? That's the spirit.
So to wrap it all up, this vision of Bushido is a spiritual path. It's a roadmap for living a strong, pure, and courageous life that's dedicated to a purpose far beyond yourself. And all of it is guided by that one fundamental truth, that you are a soul, and your real home isn't even in this world. And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. In our modern world, which is just filled with endless distractions pulling us toward the temporary and the physical, how do you live a life that is truly for your soul? Something to ponder. Thanks so much for joining me.